Welcome to our Beltane celebration, dear ones. Willst du tanzen in den Mai mit uns? Our ritual begins with Natura of the Mist's Dream of Beltane, a beautiful fey tale. We shall then create a magical craft with Mary, after which Marion Marou shall teach us about the origins of Walpurgisnacht, as well as how May Day is observed in Germany. And then I will share my ecstatic meditation upon the astrology of Beltane 2026 and the fire I believe we need to harness within ourselves in these times. Our hope for this Wheel of the Year series is that it will create a space that helps solitary practitioners feel less alone on the festivals. For the festivals were born out of community. We welcome you here. Remember, ritual is intrinsic to you. It is intrinsic for us all. Now, let's relax into Natura's dream of Beltane. We begin our journey in northern Wales, in the mountainous range of Snowdonia. The village of Mar lay cradled between green hills and a winding brook, where mist clung to the earth in the early hours, and the old ways were not mere stories, but living truths. Here, Beltane was not merely a celebration. It was a crossing, a night when the unseen stepped closer and the breath of the land could be felt on the skin. For days, preparation had been underway. Young and old gathered fallen branches and bundled them into great stacks at the edge of the common field. The elders would see to the building of the two great Belfires, set apart just wide enough for a herd of cattle and then for villagers, 3 abreast, to pass through. These fires were no ordinary flames. They were kindled with intention, sparked from sacred embers, preserved through the winter. It was said that their smoke carried blessings strong enough to cleanse illness, misfortune, and lingering shadows of the cold months. At the center of it all stood the wise man. He was known as Uri of the Ogham Grove. And even in the deepest places that are steeped in mystery, he was regarded with a quiet, reverent awe. Draped in moss-colored robes and crowned with antlered branches, he seemed less a man and more a figure shaped by the forest itself. In his hand he carried a staff of ancient yew, dark and polished by years of use. Along its length ran carved Ogham markings, fine, deliberate scores etched into the wood's edge like a hidden script. Each line held meaning: ash for protection, oak for strength, hawthorn for the threshold between worlds. When the firelight touched them, the carvings seemed to deepen, as though remembering the hands that had first inscribed them. At his side moved a quieter presence, the mystic, known among the villagers as Kale, though the children whispered other names. He was slight and green-clad, his hair tangled with leaves, his eyes bright as dew in shadow. Like the old woodland spirits of story, he kept to the edges, never quite still, never entirely seen. Some said Cale was not wholly of this world. On the eve of Beltane, the people of Minthmar gathered. Under Uri's guidance, for days they prepared in silence and song, gathering wood for the Belfires and weaving ribbons for the hawthorn May tree that stood at the heart of the green. The tree was ancient, its bark twisted with time, its blossoms pale and luminous. It was not touched without ritual, for it was said to be a threshold, a place where the veil thinned and the hidden folk listened. Uri of the Ogham Grove approached the tree at dusk, Cale moving just behind him like a shifting shadow. The villagers fell silent as Uri raised his staff. The Ogham carvings caught the last light of day, each notch casting a thin shadow like writing made of dusk itself. This night, he spoke, his voice low but carrying. We walk between what was and what will be. Honor the land, and it will remember you kindly. At his signal, ribbons were brought forward, red for life, white for spirit, green for the growing earth. Each villager tied one to the branches of the hawthorn May tree, whispering their hopes into the blossoms. Cale moved among them, brushing his fingers along certain ribbons, pausing as if listening to the wishes woven into their threads. Beyond the tree, the Belfires were lit. Flames leaped upward, fed by wood gathered with care and kindled by Uri himself, using embers preserved through winter's long hold. As he set the fires, he pressed the butt of his staff into the earth. For a moment, the Ogham lines seemed to glow faintly, as though the markings were answering the rising heat. Cale circled the fires, scattering herbs into the flames, juniper, rowan, mugwort, each tossed with a murmur in a language no one else understood. The smoke thickened, fragrant and alive, curling into the twilight like a living thing. For the next rite, Uri spoke of the cattle lines. They were led slowly, gently, toward the space between the twin fires. The villagers watched in reverent silence as the herd passed through the smoke. It clung to their hides, drifted into their breath, wrapped them in its unseen blessing. Uri lifted his staff again, the carved script catching the firelight. Through flame and smoke, we cast away the dirt and rot of winter. Through this passage, they are made whole. A child reached for her mother's hand as one of the cows hesitated at the threshold. Before fear could take root, Cale appeared at its side, resting a quiet palm against its flank. The animal stilled, then stepped forward, passing cleanly through the smoke as though guided by something deeper than instinct. When the last of the herd had crossed, a soft murmur of relief moved through the villagers. Their turn was next, and so, Lining, they also passed through the great Belfire smoke. But the night had only begun. At the center of the green stood the maypole, tall and steady, crowned with flowers and trailing ribbons in a cascade of color. At Yuri's nod, the musicians began, fiddle, drum, and flute rising together like birds taking flight. The villagers took hold of the ribbons, forming a wide circle around the pole. The dance began slowly, steps measured, deliberate. But soon the rhythm took them, and they wove in and out, laughter breaking through the hush that had held them before. The maypole dance was more than a celebration. It was a binding. The pole, rooted deep in the earth, symbolized the force of growth, rising upward, while the ribbons braided through the dancers' movements became a living tapestry of connection. Life entwining with life. The balance of forces that ensured the land would flourish, that seeds would take root, that families would grow. Cale watched from the edge, head tilted, as though listening to music beneath the music. Then, without warning, he stepped into the dance. Where he passed, the movement seemed to sharpen, the colors to brighten, the ribbons twisted more cleanly, more perfectly, as if by unseen hands. A few villagers caught glimpses of him, just a flicker of green, a flash of bright eyes, and felt a sudden, unexplainable joy. Yuri remained by the hawthorn may tree, his gaze distant, the staff resting lightly in his hands. The firelight traced the Ogham markings again and again, as if reading them aloud in a language of flame. For a moment he smiled, small, knowing. Offerings were laid at the base of the tree, bread, milk, small carvings, tokens shaped by careful hands. The villagers knew better than to take this night lightly. On Beltane, the boundary thinned, and respect was remembered and honored. As the moon climbed high, the fires burned lower, their glow steady and warm. The cattle rested beyond the field, calm and quiet. The ribbons on the maypole lay woven in intricate patterns, a testament to the dance that had bound the village together once more. And near the hawthorn may tree, where blossoms stirred without wind, Cale stood watching. For just a moment, he glanced toward Yuri of the Ogham Grove, and Yuri inclined his head as one might to an equal. In Month Mar, the people celebrated Beltane as they always had, not only with fire and dance, but with the quiet understanding that they were not alone in their keeping of the land. Everyone had full bellies and full hearts. Tender loves were seen sneaking into the woods, whilst others engaged in the board game of wood sense called Wreath. Still others availed themselves of Yuri's Sacred Grove Oracle cards, finding hints for their year ahead. Somewhere between flame and root, breath and blossom, and carved deep into you and memory alike, the old magic still lived, whispering across the hills and valleys. And on this night, it answered. Oh, Natura, thank you for this beautiful story, this beautiful vision. It truly transported me and fired my imagination. And even if I can't celebrate a Beltane just like that in the mundane world, I am so grateful to be given your vision of it so that I can celebrate it within myself, envision it, feel it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Also, if y'all are interested in the oracle decks that I used in the narration footage, or the magical book that just came out, by the way, I highly encourage you to look into it. Or in the namesake of Natura's main character, Uri Leach's art, which is amazing. Another encouragement. Or the Ogham Grove. All of that information will be in the description box below. Now, let us see what magical craft Mary has been crafting for Beltane. Oh, thank you, Mary. That was so beautiful. There's nothing better than putting decorations within your space that remind you of your connectedness to spirit and nature. Many blessings to you on this Beltane. Now, I am delighted to get to share with you Marion Marou's research on Walpurgisnacht, accompanied with her and Erno's photography and her marvelous artwork.
Hello. Wanderplea asked me if I could something say about Walpurgisnacht. It's a German tradition, and after all, I'm German. And of course, I thought to know a lot about Walpurgisnacht. But then I had to go deeper and I had to do some research. I know Walpurgisnacht especially from Ottfried Preußler's enchanting children's book about a little witch. I grew up with it. Walpurgisnacht is the night when the witches meet once a year at the witch dance floor on Brocken Mountain. Ottfried Preußler's little witch, at 127 years old, is still a very, very young and inexperienced witch compared to others. She lives with her companion, the raven Abraxas, in a small crooked house and desperately wants to join the old witches' gathering on Walpurgisnacht, even though it's forbidden for her. She grabs her broomstick, rides to the Brocken, the witches' dance floor, and sneaks among the old witches. Of course, she is caught. Her witch's broom is burned as a punishment, and she has to leave the festival deeply humiliated. The old head witch promises her that she can participate next year if she proves for a whole year that she is a good witch. So the little witch strives to do good deeds for a whole year. only to learn from the witch's council at the end of that year that a witch is only a good witch if she is evil. As a punishment for failing the test, the little witch now has to gather the wood for the Walpurgisnacht bonfire. But the little witch is clever. She magically stripes the older witches for the ability to cast spells, summons their spell books and brooms, and uses them as firewood for the Walpurgis bonfire. Evil, or rather the evil witches, are thus disempowered forever. Without their brooms and spell books, they are not able anymore to ever learn magic again or cast an evil spell. The little witch, however, dances merrily around the fire and celebrates Walpurgisnacht. Evil is defeated and the good has triumphed. In fact, this story encompasses pretty much every theme that defines Walpurgisnacht in folklore. Walpurgisnacht is the day before May 1st. It is named after the baptism of Saint Walburga, an Anglo-Saxon missionary from Wessex who contributed to the Christianization of the Frankish territories in what is now called Central Germany in the 8th century. May is a special month. It is considered the month when spring gently unfolds into full bloom. Everything is new in May, says a German folk song from the 19th century. After the days of the 5 ice saints, which culminate with Saint Sophia on May 15th, no more frost is expected. This means that the seed of frost-sensitive plants, like beans for example, can be sown, and summer flowers started indoors can be planted into the garden beds. Even the last vestiges of winter are now over. The evil, the biting cold that can destroy vital harvest, has been defeated. This defeat of the evil, the beginning of the merry month of May of fertility, is celebrated in Germany. And because, as it's known, days in ancient times were counted from the evening before. May actually begins on the eve before May, that is on Walpurgisnacht. The celebrations take many forms. In my region, a maypole is erected on the market square in the town or village center. This is a tall pole reaching through a wreath decorated with colorful ribbons that is hanging at the top of the pole. Around the maypole, the dance into May takes place. This is a joyful gathering with live music open to everyone in the region. May wine punch, a woodruff flavored drink made with white wine and sparkling wine, is served. Sausage stands offer food, German Bratwurst. Beer flows freely and perhaps schnapps as well. And people have a good time. Half the town gathers here for this and similar occasions, celebrating together. In other regions, May bonfires take center stage. Just like our maypole, these are large public celebrations. The origin of these fires lie in the idea that the purifying power of the fire should drive away the evil, essentially the late frosts of late winter. And since even in pre-Christian times, witches were seen as the cause of late frosts or even brief cold spells. These fires are still called witch fires in some places, where wooden witches are installed as symbols for the evil and sometimes even burned. In other places, these fires are called broom fires, as if, like in Ottfried Preußler's Little Witch, witches' brooms were being burned and the good, meaning particularly dangerous witches, were being disempowered. When the fires have burned down and the evil has been vanquished, lovers may leap together over the embers in triumph over the destruction and the malevolent forces, now beginning the seasons of fertility. Whether it is Maypole or Walpurgisnacht fire rituals, it's always a joyful gathering of large community celebrating together. But how did it come about that Walpurgisnacht is considered a witches' festival where pagan men and women meet? Presumably, traces of ancient pagan customs can indeed be found in the May Day celebrations. The change of the seasons were and is of great importance, as you know, especially for agrarian societies. Megalithic structures throughout Europe demonstrate that solstices and equinoxes were important fixed points in people's lives. And perhaps they really did meet on mountains and hilltops, as hills and mountains always have been considered the abode of the gods, and with their expansive view, I think they do indeed have a special effect on people's souls, at least at mine or on mine. If, however, there was some kind of May festival, as it's likely, it certainly wasn't celebrated exactly on April 13th, as it is here, but perhaps on the second full moon after spring equinox, when the light was enough to safely find one's way up to the hills, and after the sweet woodruff had signaled the approaching change of time by being close to full bloom. Yes, this thing with sweet woodruff, still so closely linked to May customs today, through May wine, for example, may be an important clue. The fact that the plant has been a time signal for people since ancient times is shown by the different names by which it is called all over Europe. In Serbia, for example, it is called Fürstling or leader. In German, it is called Waldmeister. This means master of the forest. Another word for it is Mayflower, meaning Mayflower, Maiblume in German. In French, it is the mother of the forest. This implies for me the one who gives birth to everything else. As well, there it is a queen of the forest. And finally, with it 100,000 small star-shaped blossoms, it actually adorns the forest and is the queen of May, although the month itself is also seen as a queen. Woodruff has numerous healing properties. In folklore, however, the plant is also considered a remedy against demonic forces. Witches could supposedly be driven away by a mixture of woodruff, St. John's wort, and pennyroyal. In Poznan, a region in Poland, cows that refused to eat and were therefore believed to be under a curse were given woodruff mixed with salt to break the spell. As you probably know, also salt is possibility to purify things. And all of this fits very well with a festival celebrating the expulsion of the evil. Again, we must never forget that the term witch was inextricably linked to the concept of evil will and harmful magic, both then and in folk tales. Helpful sorcerers had other names. However, the belief in magic itself, both benevolent or harmful, was firmly rooted in the population. In Germany, and I think as well in Great Britain, probably in the US and all over Europe. The Christian Church rejected this belief as a superstition well into the Middle Ages. Nevertheless, such ideas persisted among the population and found a horrific expression in the early modern period, time of upheaval marked by the Little Ice Age, terrible plagues, and completely shattered worldview. On the one hand, the population was in distress and uncertainty. On the other hand, this era of humanism saw the rise of scholarly interest in identity-forming traditions, mysticism, alchemy, and so on. For example, in the 15th century, from this 15th century onwards, scholars like Johannes Aventinus, Konrad Celtes, and Johannes Trithemius were fascinated of Druidism and mystical and occult practices in which they meant to have found in antique texts. In this way, the first schools of high magic were established. On the other hand, and in the same time, the Dominicanian monk Heinrich Kramer researched the prevailing ideas about witchcraft among the population in the folk and created a kind of scientific companion for defining a witch, the well-known Malleus Maleficarum. This literally means the hammer or weapon against those who cause evil. Of course, then taught by the help of witchcraft. The Malleus Maleficarum was published in Speyer in 1486 and became the basis for the definition of a witch during the witch hunts that swept across the continent for centuries. In the Malleus Maleficarum, the motive of seasonal festivals was elaborated to the effect that witches went out at night through the chimneys to fly on their broomsticks to witch gatherings on mountaintops, where they celebrated ecstatic and unholy festivals, dancing and mating naked with devils and demons. Johannes Praetorius, a German writer who, like the brothers Grimm, collected folk tales, also researched extensively on magical customs and took up the topic in 1668. Almost 200 years later, And he was the first to locate the witches' dance on the Blocksberg. Blocksberg is another name for a mountain called Brocken. Brocken is in what is now called Saxony-Anhalt, in Germany. And it became, after this, soon a center of witch persecution. For another 100 years, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe linked the witches' dance with Walpurgis. In his tragedy Faust, published 1808. Interestingly, this Walpurgisnacht, then firmly associated with the witches' dance in the collective memory, corresponds in Faust Part 1 to the rather nightmarish, orgiastic notions of the early modern period, while in Faust Part 2 he presents a different Walpurgisnacht, contrasting the first one by depicting a classical Walpurgisnacht in Greece with references to Greek pantheistic deities. In any case, Walpurgisnacht at this time, Walpurgisnacht at the time when witches gathered on the Brocken mountain now was firmly anchored in the collective memory of the Germans. Today, the Brocken is marketed to tourists as a witch dance place. When pagan and matriarchal movements began positively to claim the term witch in the mid-20th century, a new, seemingly ancient tradition of witch festivals developed. Walpurgisnacht and the witches' dance were equated with Beltane and claimed as witches' festivals. Thus, a motive that originally led to the persecution and death of countless innocent women and men was, through its reinterpretation, purified, sanctified, and used for healing purposes. Evil no longer has a place in the concept of a pagan witch. On contrary, she or he proudly wears his crown of her or his personal magic. Many people in Germany celebrate the end of winter and the beginning of May, as well as the start of fertility on the eve of April 30th, with dancing into May, bonfires, and joyful gatherings in public spaces. Likewise, pagan groups today, in more private settings or at medieval markets, do not know exactly, welcome May and the beginning fertility. The evil of late spring's icy chill, the evil of witchcraft, and the evil of witch hunts has been banished. Walpurgisnacht belongs to them. May they dance joyfully around the fires in which they once burned. May they find joy and spread blessings wherever they set foot. May colorful flowers bloom. May has come, the trees are budding.
Oh, Marion, das ist schön. Danke, danke. Ich tanze in den Mai mit dich. Ich bin sehr glücklich. Sorry for my rough German there, guys. But Marion's dear friendship has ignited my desire to learn German again. I am trying, and she is so kind and helpful. Thank you for researching this for us. Truly a gift. This essay made my heart soar and taught me so many wondrous things. Thank you so much, Marou. Thank you. So, now I would like to share my thing. I'm not sure what to call it. It just sort of happened out of me over several months, like almost a year. It became in part an incantation for me, a spell of self, of time, so many things. I found that it clustered around the astrology of this Beltane, and it felt very important to me. We small folk need to harness fire. I'm very much a novice in astrology, like very much so, but I would encourage you to take note of where Aries is in your birth chart, because there is a lot happening there in that fiery sign. Very much the beginning of a new cycle. So yeah, here is my thing. Lovely hawthorn, armed with thorns, her tender blossoms heralding the days of oak, we greet the king of the forest. He stands mighty, strong, and ancient. Oh, run your hand over his thick bark. He speaks to you of days long past, and all those he has sheltered, his branches like lightning. He fathers the oak wise, and he awakens oak wisdom within you. And you, with your soft cheek against his rough, sturdy trunk, you wonder how we could have forgotten, how we could have made our world so ugly and perilous. Yet your heart knows a true mother hearkens to her children's weeping. And oh, my child, as you cling to the oak, whilst your reality whirls, I feel your terror. As Neptune holds court in Aries, flooding all consciousness with dreams of fire. There are those who hold stolen power. You know them. Those who rule your apparent world and enact their dreams of fire, destruction, conquest, and power. They burn all they deem useless, wrong, and weak. Yet I, maiden, mother, crone, beginning, present, ending, all within me, mysterious triplicity, I bring you a dream of fire. Fire of protection, passion, and creativity. The dream I bring you contains more power than those petty princes can imagine. I am the Lady Bull who thunders. The oak contains lightning, and I thunder betwixt the fires. Oh, feel the oak in your own trunk, life flowing to your limbs. Your blood surges with the feminine, the masculine, form and force. I transform you into Beltane's Taurus, spring mad and summer stalwart. Be oak wise, my children. Thunder with me betwixt the flames. Blaze a new story into time, into your world. I am the Lady Bull who thunders betwixt the Beltane Fires. Blessed Beltane, dear ones, what is your dream of fire? And how can you harness it to empower yourself and to empower others? Thank you so much for joining us in our festivities. We would love to have you with us next for the summer solstice. And if you would like to contribute to our summer solstice celebration, information will be in the description box below. Thank you so very much to Natura of the Mists, Mary, and Marion Marou for celebrating with me. From all of us, we wish you the bestest Beltane. See y'all later. Bye.